You. Yes, I'm talking to you. What if I told you you're paying attention to the wrong information when it comes to buying a home? Are you constantly bombarded by doom and gloom headlines predicting the next housing market crash? Are you holding off, or have you been holding off on buying a home because of what you're seeing online? Well, I'm here to tell you you're absolutely wrong about the real estate market. The truth is, most of those experts don't actually understand the data, and the reality is what's happening nationwide doesn't really affect you. Stick around and I'll reveal why real estate is all about your local market and why waiting for that perfect moment might end up costing you more than you think. Here's the deal. You've probably been paying attention to the wrong information. But here's the thing. Don't beat yourself up because you're not alone. You, like a lot of other people, have been on YouTube listening to all of the crash porn out there, thinking that the world is about to end and that with that home prices are somehow going to become much less expensive. But as I mentioned a moment ago, most of those guys don't actually understand the data that they're talking about. And to go a step further, what's happening in Florida doesn't affect you as a home buyer looking to purchase in New Jersey, or at the same time, what's happening in Texas doesn't affect you as a potential home buyer here in Southern California. The business of selling fear is real and has not only cost a lot of people money, but in some cases the opportunity to actually buy a home, as they've been waiting on the sideline for some magical unicorn to appear that's ultimately going to bring prices down and become much more affordable. But the reality is that's not going to happen. So what should you actually be paying attention to when it comes to buying a home? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into in today's video. But before we do that, I'd like to take a minute and ask a favor. If you find any value in my videos at all, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. And if you want to stay updated on everything real estate related, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Now, this is a phrase I've mentioned many times in many videos over the years. Real estate is local. And the reason I stress this is because there's a lot of misleading national headlines out there that can ultimately grab your attention, but at the end of the day, really has no bearing on you and your local real estate market. National headlines often paint a broad picture that can be really misleading when it comes to local real estate markets. While national trends are interesting and important, most of the time they don't really reflect the nuances of your local real estate market. It's really important. In fact, it's essential that you focus on local data and trends when making decisions about buying real estate. And with that, I want to bring up one of those national headlines at the moment that's very misleading. In fact, take this article. Housing supply surges by up to 50% in these metro areas, and many sellers are being forced to slash their asking prices, which leads many readers out there to think that that's probably happening in most real estate markets across the nation. But when you actually dive into the context of the article, you realize that the majority of the metros that they're talking about in that article are located in two states, Florida and Texas. And yes, it is true that Texas is back at pre-pandemic levels when it comes to housing inventory. In addition to that, states like Florida, Arizona, and Idaho are almost there as well. However, most of the country still remains below pre-pandemic levels when it comes to inventory and months of supply. At the same time, there are still areas of the country that still have really tight inventory, like much of the Midwest and the Northeast, where inventory remains very tight. In fact, if you look at this chart here from Resi Club, you can see nationwide where inventory is compared to a more normal market like 2019. And while there is some softening in many housing markets across the US because of higher mortgage rates and lower affordability, which in turn is allowing inventory to rise, that in no way means that a crash is occurring, because at the moment, house prices are still rising about 6% year over year. So instead of focusing on the national headlines, what I'd like you to do is pay more attention to what's happening locally in your market. And at the end of the day, you have to understand your local housing market dynamics. Real estate markets aren't only influenced by inventory and interest rates, they're also influenced by local factors as well, such as employment rates, as well as population growth. And while these factors vary significantly from one region to another, it's more important to pay attention to that than what's happening on that nationwide basis. At the same time, local economies play a significant role in the real estate market. For instance, we can take a look at a market like San Francisco that saw crazy housing appreciation during the early parts of the pandemic, only to see a huge pullback in prices just a short time later. And the primary reason for that was twofold, with the primary one being politics in that area and how they chose to address some of the local issues like homelessness, which in turn caused a lot of businesses to leave the area, which had a cascading effect where a lot of employees of those businesses also left the area. So now you have a lot less demand in a market where inventory is starting to grow. Therefore, you saw a reduction in house prices because of that. But here's what's important to know. What was happening in San Francisco didn't affect me down here in Southern California, in Orange County, where I'm located. Our housing market never saw that pullback in prices. We never saw those issues that were happening up in San Francisco. And while we are in the same state, it's super important to pay attention to what's happening in your local economy, what's actually driving the housing market where you're located. Now, something I often say is regardless of where you're located nationwide, supply and demand are what's going to drive that market. But with that, you have to go a step deeper and say, what's driving inventory? What's driving the rise in inventory? What's driving the fall in inventory? What's causing builders to not want to build, to not be able to build? At the same time, what's affecting demand? Are people not buying in a market because something that's happening political? Are they not buying because of affordability? Are they not buying because of mortgage rates or because they can't find the right home? All of these things matter when it comes to what you're paying attention to when it comes to buying a home. Also understand that the media often sensationalizes real estate market trends to attract viewership. Terms like housing bubble or market crash are used loosely and can ultimately create panic. And with that, it's super important to sift through the noise and focus on credible, data-driven sources. So if I were looking to purchase a property in a certain market, what I would do is I would find a local expert that understands that market. Not only do they understand the national trends that are going on, but they can help break that down for you in your market. They can help you understand why that may apply, why that might not apply, and ultimately help you understand what's driving your local market, what's driving supply, what's driving demand. And really, that's the importance of local expertise. Working with a local real estate expert that understands the intricacies of your local real estate market and can provide valuable insights that the generic doom and gloom headlines cannot. A local professional will not only know what's going on in the headlines and in your local market, they'll have a pulse of the market and can offer tailored advice based on your situation. Now, depending on where you're located in the country, if you're here in Orange County, I can be that person for you. I can walk you through that process. We can talk about the market. I can guide you. I can answer your questions. And we can determine whether or not right now is the best time for you to buy a house. And if you're outside of Orange County, don't worry. I've got your back. I created a referral link below of people that I know personally that can guide you through that process. They do business just like I do. So if you're looking to purchase and you want to work with a local pro, do me a favor and click that link below. The last thing I'll say is that many buyers delay purchasing, waiting on the perfect opportunity to buy a home, which may end up never coming. While they wait, prices and interest rates may continue to rise, making home ownership more expensive in the long run. It's better to buy when you are financially ready and local market conditions are favorable.